I'll check some right-wing servers.
I want 25% of the profits if I'm going to debate him.
Oh, he came back.
What's up?
So wait,
People said
you
I should
want
come back here.
you want criminals to be allowed in the country?
I want
James, lock 600. Lock 600.
Well, I know you're going to say, so we define criminals as somebody who broke the law, so technically by crossing the border, blah blah. If they have committed a violent crime in this country or previously, then no, I do not want them here. I want the process.
Being a violent crime.
Hold on. I want the process by which you become a legal citizen to be an easier process. I also want the conversation to be more nuanced because you right now are saying criminals this, criminals that. Did you know that illegal immigrants actually commit less crime on average than native-born Americans?
Breaking and entering entering a violent crime? Answer the question.
No, not when you're talking about the border.
Yes, it is.
No, not when you're talking about the border. Because no. You're being dishonest immediately by saying breaking and entering. No one was. They didn't breaking and there was no breaking and.
Did they break into the country and enter the country?
They illegally entered the country.
Were we occupying it when they broke in?
I want you to say those words again.
This is why I put 600.
Illegally entered.
Mm-hmm. I already said I know that you guys are going to say so. Technically, they're a criminal, and that's why
Which
I said
part about
if there is
that
a
is
violent
legal or
crime
not?
involved, then absolutely. However,
no. Stop. Just. What part about that is legal? Illegally.
I never said
entered.
it was legal.
Right.
Wait, when did I say it was? I didn't say it was legal. I said I want the conversation to be more nuanced because now you guys are focused very much so on the crime and everything else, without recognizing that.
So
maybe even
if you want to open like the immigration for people and make it easier to apply to become a citizen, I understand what you're saying, and I'll follow your logic thought. Shouldn't we first stem the flow of illegals that are crossing before we can even have that conversation? Because I necessarily might not be against what you're saying.
To be clear, my argument is not hold on. I'm talking. Hold on. My argument, just to be clear, is not let's just open the border and let everybody just walk in. No, I think that we should continue
you want to make it
borders.
a little bit easier to get in.
Yeah, and also I recognize that there are definitely serious risks with just anyone just walking into the country. I am not in favor of what conservatives would say open borders or anything like that.
So how would you shut up German? What I'm
how
would you make it easier?
So what I'm talking about is a lot of the times conservatives say things like the illegal immigrants, since they're here illegally, should all be deported without taking into consideration that the illegal immigrants here that haven't committed any other crimes since being here, have not been involved in any violent crimes, are also massively contributing to the economy. And
they also do jobs no one wants.
And the overall well-being of American citizens. They pay massively into Social Security, for example. So things like this, when people say, like, let's deport them or because they broke the law, I don't want to do that. I think that's silly. We should make the process easier now, though.
Should we give them rights?
Give them rights? What kind of rights are you referring to?
The right to vote, for example. Should we allow someone who does not understand American history, that doesn't understand the concept of being American, afforded the right to vote? Does that not water down all of our votes?
Could you explain what it means to be, what the concept of being an American means?
Well, I mean, first to understand the fundamentals of this country. Right? To understand that we all have inherent rights given to us by our creator, which I would agree that not many Americans know nowadays, which also goes into my education topic.
What
we
if
need
they
to
don't
be more
believe that?
vocal.
Like, I don't believe that. So if I don't believe that, am I not allowed to be a citizen?
You were born here. You already made the cut, unfortunately. I believe you have the right to say stupid things.
So wait.
Does the normal immigrant who legally does the process in this country have to pass a basic citizenship test to become a citizen in the United States?
I'm not saying the people who are here illegally should have the right to vote. I think that if you're
I asked you a direct question and you didn't answer.
I'm not sure how the question was related. Could you repeat the question? Because I was in the middle of a different conversation.
Does a legal immigrant who goes through the legal process, do they have to do a citizenship test to become a full citizen of the United States and vote?
I want to say yes, but I feel like maybe
every single one of them do yes.
Okay, so I was never.
So in order for them to vote, they have to go through a whole process to prove that they understand basic U.S. civics.
You're arguing a point I never made. I literally,
illegal
I literally
immigrants
never said anything wrong
don't
about.
have to do that, and they're proposing.
We're not
for people
talking
to
about
vote.
illegal. We're not talking about just knowing stuff. We're talking about whether or not you should have the right to vote, and whether or not the right to vote, or you should have this knowledge or this course or this. Yeah, you should know the fundamentals of America before you can vote. I never said that you shouldn't.
Yeah, I was just asking. I wasn't trying to.
I would love to add on.
I was
to that.
responding to
should-
Turtle, to be
under-
honest. To be
okay.
clear, sorry.
Under your proposed system, would we still have the same citizenship test?
I believe so. Sure. I don't know.
So what you're basically saying is you want to allocate more funding so there can be more people to process these applications, because that's what the holdup is.
I'm not a
so many people
policymaker. I'm not
apply
here
and
to-
they have to look through each
just to
one.
be clear, I'm not a policymaker. I'm not here to be like, what we should do first is start with this section of the border and then, but I don't know all of that. I have a general idea of what I think would be better, because right now you're honestly, what you just suggested, that would be a good place to start probably, because a big problem
It
right
would
now
give you
is,
something to work with.
well, yeah, because a big
Hold on,
problem
you
right
don't
Yeah,
think
but
that
what is-
strengthening the border
what
right
is
now to
the
stop the
end
issue
goal?
going
Dude,
on would be the first move?
never get me wrong. Say we fix the border crisis. Say we did whatever and they stopped coming across. If he then wanted
would
to,
love
and we
to add on
got
to
rid
that.
of the
More curious
illegals that were causing problems, if we
I would
wanted
love
to
to
offer
add
a
to
little
this.
grace period and some sort of a fine that they had to pay for staying here, like a yearly fine, you have to pay this fucking much because you were an illegal immigrant in here. It's the raw slice, but we won't deport your ass as long as you didn't do like crimes and shit, right? I could almost hear his fucking case for that, right? The only issue that I would see is it would encourage more people to do it, so that then hopefully we would do it again, right?
I would love to add to this.
encouragement.
Hold on.
Wait,
We
I'm
don't want to incentivize these people, but
Why?
if we could stem the tide, if we could get the ones illegally out that were here, we would. I don't think a lot of people would be against funding the border to get paperwork accomplished quicker.
So
I am not
are you
against hiring some more
legal
motherfuckers.
Immigrants?
What?
Are you against more legal immigrants coming here? Like, just to be
No,
okay.
not necessarily. If it shows the economy needs it, right?
Mhm.
I don't care if people from Peru want to fly up for a season or two to pick our vegetables. Fuck it. If we need it, we need it, right?
Okay.
Here's, I would love to add, and I've said this
But they
before.
gotta go back after.
It doesn't.
Well, yeah, a lot of them. This is the crazy part. In West Virginia, they do this whenever harvest comes along. They'll fly
doesn't
up
matter.
people from Peru. They'll make a good amount of money, pay their fucking taxes to the system, and then they'll go back. Right? That
doesn't
I mean,
matter.
some of them might want to stay,
What
right?
if they
And
legally stay
there are
here, though?
processes to legalization, right? I mean,
I've said this before. It doesn't matter, if we build a wall or increase more funding to Border Patrol. If we truly want to address why so many people come here, right? I've said it. I'm a broken record at this point. People come here because back home, there's no jobs, there's no security, there's no opportunities,
it.
right? So of course people are going to come here. If things stabilized back home, maybe people wouldn't have a reason
that's
to
not
travel
the issue
thousands of
we're
miles.
that's not the issue we're addressing.
That's a
He
completely
asked
different
he
issue.
asked if we would be willing to expand the number of legals that would be able to enter, and I responded with, as long as we did something about the illegals first, it would be up for discussion. And I wouldn't necessarily be against it if it was proposed in such a way that it was economically viable, socially viable, right? Because we don't want to let too many in to overpopulate us, right?
Honestly,
Because then
if-
our way of life is gone.
if we could, I would be more interested to steer off this and kind of steer into the question, because you said, like, with the basic citizen test stuff involving God, and they should agree that we've all been given rights by God. What if, like, what if you don't believe in God? What if you're
Our creator.
okay? What if you don't believe in a
but
creator?
the U.S. citizenship test does not refer to God. It talks to our creator.
Yeah, but Inquisitor was
creator's pretty like broad statement.
But
like, this
Inquisitor
can
was
even apply
talking-
to something like computer simulation.
everybody
like
has
something
a creator.
Created you, right?
Okay.
You have to accept this.
Sure,
Like
fine,
there's
but I
no
think that
way around
I
it.
think it was getting to a certain. I think Inquisitor at least was getting to a point, because Inquisitor, I thought
What
you were talking
I-
about changing the education. So I guess I took it as meaning far more religious. than
What I just
No,
wonder
I think
about is
I think
what I
public
just
schooling
wonder
not having
about-
religion is fine and dandy, right? Like I don't necessarily disagree with that as long as they stop all religion from public schools, all of
Okay.
it. And I'm not against parents teaching their children religion, right? I believe the education starts at home. I believe it is the right of the parents whether to raise them Christian or whatever, but there are inherent rights given to us by our creator that goes across every religion as long as you're not a violent off the wall religion, right?
What do
Trying
you
to
think that
oppress other
parents
people.
should teach their kids? Like, do you
No,
think,
I-
do you think that
I'm
parents
not
should
to-
teach
I
their
mean-
kids religion? I guess I should point that question.
I
out.
mean, well, I view religion as a really good guidepost on how to lead a healthy and productive life, both societally and for your family hierarchy, right?
Mhm.
I think that it's good for idiots, right? If people can't see what their problem is or they don't understand how to address their problem, religion kind of gives you those easy guideposts. That's like, as long as I do this, this, and this, I'm not gonna be a fucking drug addict waste or I'm not gonna fucking die, right?
Right. Okay, so I think we kind of agree more or less then on the religion thing.
I mean, I'm still Orthodox,
You
right?
need Jesus in your life.
Because I'm not gonna say I'm above it
Oh,
all.
here we go.
I am intelligent, right? But I do need some help too.
Source.
But I was also an addict, so I can't really.
think
I like how
benefit
somebody
I had to
chimed
grow
in
a
and said-
brain.
I like
I
how
think
somebody
the
chimed in and
benefit
said,
of,
"I really
like-
need Jesus." I don't know who said
I,
that.
I think the benefit of like
Yeah, you
teaching
need 'em.
kids religion is developing someone spiritually, right? And there's a lot of mystery when it comes to that. But go Google the definition of spirit. It says the non-physical part of a person, which is the seat of emotions and character.
Mhm.
So spirituality
Okay.
literally is character development and emotional development.
I mean,
So what,
perhaps.
let's just call it that.
I'm
then.
not against that idea. It could be. I believe the more religious someone becomes, there's more character growth along the way, right? And even losing one's religion builds character. I mean, it might not be healthy or good character,
I used to
dependent
be-
on the person or the religion, right?
I used to be hardcore Christian. I was raised very Christian, took it very seriously until I was like 18 or 19, I think. By the time I was 20, I was really kind of falling off with Christianity, and now I'm pretty adamantly against Christianity, actually. So,
I mean,
But yeah,
that's
I
fine,
grew up
but
atheist, and I slowly became more and more
Or, like, you know what?
orthodox over time.
the thing is, right, like I grew up Catholic, didn't really understand much about it, went through life and then became Christian because I needed, some sort of like something to
Structure.
help, structure, right? And like it's
Yeah.
better to have structure than go through life blind and not knowing where to go or what to
Yeah, but
focus
Yeah,
what if
on.
that
it's
and
not
what
so
structure
much
is-
of a guessing game, right? You get a little bit of guidance.
yeah, but
yeah,
you,
there's
do you
utility
remember?
to religion. There's utility to religion.
But do you remember the famous words of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ when he said, "The wise man built his house upon a rock and not the sand"? I don't want my structure built on something like Christianity, which is fundamentally flawed and broken pretty much down to its roots. Whether you want to
I don't
get to
think so.
the historical accuracies or whether you want to get to the issues with the actual religion itself, God's depictions in the Old Testament and the New Testament, the contradictions, there are so many flaws there that I don't think that I could ever use it as a structure.
I think you're getting a little bit off
Well,
topic here, but
This is the
Well, the
point.
topic can
See, the
do.
thing
we're,
is,
we're talking
the
about
thing-
immigration.
No, I
so-
think we're
let
kinda
me-
just
let me
sliding
just
off
finish
that.
with this. Let me just finish with this. Is that there are you can argue that there are flaws, but you can also I can also argue that there's good aspects to it, virtuous aspects to God's word, right? So you got to take the good with the bad, and that goes along with anything in life, right? Like
I'm getting the religious scholar on the line. Give me a minute, because I'm super new to religion myself, right? Like I said, I used to be a diehard atheist, and over time, right, I've experienced, I guess, a higher power, a higher being, right?
Can we definitely get this religious scholar on? Because I've been debating a lot of like just regular Christians, and I would love to debate a scholar.
Yeah, I'm trying to get grumped now.
Getting who?
Grunt.
Oh, Grunt. Okay.
Yeah.
Nah, I think you need more Scarface for this one.
I don't know Scarface.
Oh, he is super Catholic. Like even Grunt goes to him for questions.
Should get Mads in on this.
I mean,
Who?
Grunt's cool, but I don't think I said anything that was unreasonable, right? I think that spirituality
Yeah.
is good, and I think that developing your emotions, developing yourself emotionally, and your character is a good thing. And
I'm not gonna say
it's
you're
definitely
wrong. I'm gonna
virtuous.
say I defer to a higher source.
Of course, developing your emotions and everything is important and beneficial.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And if it so happens to be through religion, you can't really knock it for that, right?
Well, it depends. If you're when you say like, well, you know, you got to take the good and the bad, and you kind of got to do what you do with it. I get that, and I think that that's a very fair perspective to have for virtually anything. But when it comes to religion, specifically Christianity and the type of Christianity that I was raised, I was taught that God was the arbiter of morality, that he is the arbiter of truth, that he is the arbiter of justice. So there isn't
believe
supposed
that.
to be bad. I'm not supposed to read about God being okay with slavery, and then also
Hey, Hunter.
Wait,
That's just
wait,
a
wait, wait,
misnomer.
wait.
Wait, hang on.
What do you
Hang
mean
on,
okay
Hunter.
with slavery?
Hang on,
Wasn't
hang on,
one of
hang
the
on.
biggest
Hang
stories?
on, bro.
Hold on, wait. Wasn't one of the biggest things in the Bible the slaves rebelling in
yeah,
Egypt?
God's people were slaves, and then what did God tell them when they were in the desert? Do you remember?
What? Refresh my memory.
Leviticus 44. What was it? It was like Leviticus 44:25, maybe.
He basically said, "You suck, and you got to walk around the desert for a while."
No,
Suffer.
no. And then he said, from the nations around you, you may buy slaves. From them, you can get slaves, and they will become your property, and you can bequeath them to your children, and they will become their property, and they can inherit them because they are your property. And that verse started with God said to Moses, these are the commands to give to the people. So I can't read that and say, okay, well, that's just God when he was bad, LOL. Like, no. This is supposed to be God. There's not supposed to be like a bad here.
I think Christian was saying say something, no?
Yes, but then if you go into the Newer Testament, all right, where Christianity really drives from.
I mean, I was
Okay, the
always
Newer
told it was
Testament.
an old agreement that was fulfilled, and then new rules were established.
I know the Bible. It says that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. God in the Old Testament, who said you can get slaves, is the same God who apparently loved us all and said that,
Were they lifetime slaves?
yes.
No, they were
Hunter,
not.
I would
Yes,
say
they
that
were.
it's
Hold on.
his
Can I?
fault,
I'm
right?
sorry.
Like,
Can
it
I?
was
Can
being
I?
Hunter,
I'm
you
sorry.
do
Sorry. Hold on. Wait.
together.
Please. Please. There. Yes. The verse itself says they will be your slave for life. It was
Exodus 21. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he's to serve you for 6 years.
Yes,
but the seventh
Hebrew.
year should go
Yes,
free.
thank you. Thank you for proving my point. Yes. The Hebrew slave was to be let go because they were God's people. But if they were the quote unquote heathens from around them, it was okay to have them as slaves. Do you want me to point you to some other verses where God said that they could literally
I'm
take
just pointing
women?
I'm just pointing you to the fact that they were not all lifetime slaves.
Not all of them, sure.
There was also strict stipulations as to how slaves should be treated in the Old
Do you
Testament.
want me to point you to the
Exodus
verse where it
says.
says that the earth is not God's kingdom?
Wait, Exodus
has
also
no
says that
real power here?
if you beat a slave, if you beat your slave and he does not die and recovers in a day or two, the master shall not be punished because the slave is his property. Exodus. That is a direct verse.
And that's why Christianity follows the doctrines of the New Testament.
So what okay.
Yeah, the first
Like we're not
Christians do it.
Jews. I don't know
The-
why
the
you're
Old
yelling at us about the Old Testament.
Because okay, wait. Do you follow the Ten Commandments?
Anomaly is.
Do Christians look at the Ten Commandments by any chance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, generally.
So stop with it's only the New Testament thing. No, you pull from the Old Testament all the fucking time. Is gay
Yeah,
marriage
a lot
bad?
of
Is it?
people- a lot of
Wait.
pull
Is it?
from the Old
Is it?
Testament,
I
even
want to
though
ask
it
the
is
Christians
from
here.
the-
I want to ask the
from
Christians.
I
the-
Is
figured
it?
the 10 Commandments were like the overall rules, and individual groups got other rule sets.
So let me ask you this then: Is it bad to be gay?
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Is
yes,
that
an
based on
abomination to
is that
God.
based on Leviticus?
No.
It's based
It's
on more
bad
than
to act,
Leviticus.
Jay.
Is some
Yeah.
of it based on
It's wrong
Leviticus?
to act on it. It's not
No.
wrong to have the feeling.
If you want me to take a completely scientific stance about it, I can.
Okay, wait, no,
I
no, no.
know, and at
I'm not.
least
I'm not
in
trying
our
to challenge
doctrine that
anybody on
God
gay stuff.
loves
I'm trying to
everyone
demonstrate because
equally.
someone here just said it's an abomination. That's literally the Leviticus verse from the Old
Yeah,
Testament.
someone else said that. My opinion comes from a place of science, but it's backed up by the Bible.
I know, but I was talking more to the Christian people, more or less, because
Okay, that's
I
fair.
was just saying that like we derive from the Old Testament. Christianity, even if
Well,
it's
Hunter, at
doctrine.
least in Catholicism, the popes have come out to say that like you shouldn't exercise hate or ill will towards people who are homosexual.
Right, but
Yeah,
about the
Pope
slavery, but
Palpatine said in the
about the
Vatican.
slavery thing, though, more importantly, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
Is
Yeah, and Jesus created a new covenant.
right. Okay, so just to be clear, I understand that, and my claim is not Christians nowadays want to go get slaves. If that was my claim, I would understand because Jesus made a new covenant. God is not commanding like modern day Christians go and get slaves. Like obviously, that's not my problem. My problem is very specifically the Bible in the Old Testament and the New Testament. It is the same God, God the Father. It is the same God. So the same God is doing things that are immoral, saying that
Father
you can get
and the
slaves.
Son.
Yes, but did he not
Father
sit there
and
and
the
send
Son.
his
No,
son down to teach us that we were all
you can't
fucking
can't
God's
claim God
children?
to be immoral.
Why?
An
Got him.
omnipotent, all-powerful being is not capable of being immoral.
Is slavery immoral?
And
sometimes,
no. You address my point
no.
there. An all-powerful, omnipotent being
Mhm.
is not capable of being immoral.
I could agree with that, but then you would need to concede in turn that then the God of the Bible is not God.
Is it the same God that sent his son down for us? Who tell us that we're all
Fair
God's
to maybe
children?
interpret
And that
that
we follow
that stuff written
Jesus?
in the Old Testament
sometimes-
isn't truly the testament of God the Father.
Okay, sometimes
Jesus added new context.
You guys are not
sometimes
addressing
I
my
feel
argument.
that-
Nobody
no.
is. No
Yeah,
one's
no.
addressing my argument.
Well,
It's,
why
it's
do
okay. I
you
God
understand.
to be immoral,
I
Hunter.
hate
I
'em.
don't know what to tell you.
What'd you say?
Sometimes
With
I don't
your
believe
argument
God to
is
be immoral.
That's fine.
And if
You-
you're basing it off of old religious texts, how do we know that that's God's will and God's covenant?
How do you know the old? Okay, fine then. How do you know the new? Excuse me. The 10 Commandments are really from God then?
Well, the Ten Commandments didn't say own slaves.
Okay, but the 10 Commandments said all sorts of other things that you should and shouldn't do. So maybe that was just a mistake. That's old text. Why are you trusting that
They're
old
saying
text
that
from
not
the
to
same
murder
book
is a mistake?
or close to
Well,
it?
so that's Hunter. So that's directly the word from God because that came down and was inscribed
Okay, I'll just
on
pull up the verse
stone things
specifically
that
for
he
you
had. It
guys.
wasn't rewritten and
So
made
No,
by
you're
by
making
human.
stuff up. You're in denial
That
right
was
now.
given to
Hunter,
Moses
This is what
Hunter.
from
Christians
God
always do. They
on the
always melt down at
mountain.
the
Hunter, hold on,
facts.
hold on, hold
No,
on,
but
hold
that's
on.
actually the text, Hunter.
No, it's
I
not.
don't
I'll
know
read
what
it to
tell
you. God gave these commands deliberately to Moses. It said, and the
Right.
Lord said to Moses, these are the commands I have for the people. From the
He
nations
wrote it
around
on. He
you,
inscribed
you
it on
can
the
get
tablets.
slaves.
Yes.
Whoa,
God
this is no
himself
longer about
said,
politics.
you can
Slaves
get
were not
slaves.
inscribed on the tablets.
They don't need to be. God himself said, you can get slaves.
Bro, we get it. You hate God, bro. We get it. But me
I
teaching
hate
my
slavery,
kid,
but maybe that's just, my bad.
We also hate
Yeah, and
slavery.
Christians-
I
That
don't.
just
That's
sounds
a
like you
weird
virtue.
debate
This
topic.
is just a virtue signal. It's
Wait,
pro-
wait.
It is not a virtue
Time
signal
out.
at all.
I've been quiet for a minute. I got a question. If you hate slavery, why do you hate the 10th Amendment or the 13th? I'm sorry, 13th Amendment.
I don't know, and I'm not getting into this conversation. Please
Oh,
continue
you
to the
should,
next
because the
Christian.
13th Amendment still permits slavery.
Hunter.
When did God say you can have slaves?
In
Yeah,
the
technically.
Leviticus.
A lot of people
Yes.
forget that
25,
slaves back
44.
then are not the slaves of the
Yeah,
18th century.
Yep,
two-
we
there's
know.
two
I know.
religious
No,
contexts here,
this
Hunter.
is not a.
There's two contexts to the slavery. One is the historical context of what slavery actually was at the time. It wasn't chattel slavery.
I
And
don't
two
care.
is that Jesus later added
What do you
new
mean don't care?
context saying that if you are to have a slave, you need to treat him like a brother, which kind of adds a paradox of you can't own your brother.
All right, we're gonna go ahead
So
and
you
just
can no
pull some
longer do it.
sticky notes up because
Right.
there's some stuff that's
Slavery
being
was
said right
more
now. That's...
akin to indentured servitude.
Okay, so was slavery at this time period in the Bible owning another human being as property?
No.
Yes, but they weren't
Ish.
treated like
I'll read the
dog
Yeah,
verse
but
to
it
you
wasn't
too.
just,
It's
it
just
wasn't just the Jews, wasn't just the Christians doing it. It's all sorts.
I didn't say it was. It says
Malik, shut the fuck up.
the Lord
Yeah,
said.
you're-
Can
you're
I
specifically
just really quickly?
Christianity,
I'd like to
slavery
read.
was banned in Western world.
I'd like to read from God, please. The Lord said to Moses at Mount Sinai, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land, I'm going to give you the land itself." And this is where he gives commands. If you go down to 44, your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and make them slaves for life, but must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. So they were fully allowed to have slaves. So did the Bible, did God...
Look,
Okay,
let me
Avalon.
read something. I've been trying to say this for a long time. I'm
think it's
sorry.
just a
So,
conflict
let me say this. So in Timothy, right? Timothy 1:10, it says, this is talking about the doctrine, right? The whole God's word. And it says, for the sexually immoral, for those practicing homosexuality, for slave traders and liars and perjurers, and for whatever else is contrary to the sound doctrine that conforms to the gospel concerning the glory of the blessed God, which he entrusted to me. So right there, it's equating slave traders to the sexually immoral and homosexuals.
Which verse was this
So
again?
right here, Timothy 1:10.
Yes.
So it recognizes that slave traders, right, are immoral. So
the Old
you know,
Testament, in the Old Testament before Jesus came, things were much different, including slavery and God's rules for the Israelites. Now, when Jesus came, everything is different today.
Oh, enslavers. Okay. Okay.
Right.
So there's a couple.
the new
there's
covenant
a couple
established
things.
by the New Testament says slave trading bad. Okay.
Okay. I need
In
to
Exodus
be able to respond to
21:2,
this because you guys are
they could only
spitballing a ton of stuff
they
here
could
at
only
me.
be a
Okay.
slave for 6 years. Upon the 7th
let 'em
year,
fight back.
they were to
That
be
was
set
that
free.
was for the Hebrew slaves, the Israelite slaves specifically. They could be enslaved temporarily, and then they could be let free. For
Well,
the
are you
other
talking- are
slaves
you
from the
responding to
nations
me?
around them, they were slaves for
responding to me?
life. I'm responding
Are
to
you
whoever
responding
just
to me?
said that.
Said what?
So I want to just know, yes or no, is slavery owning a person? Is it owning a human being as property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it depends. Well, yeah, chattel slavery is chattel means property.
In
Okay,
the
so-
Bible,
so-
it's more
Or
like
was it
employment.
chattel?
Okay. But they were owned as property. It doesn't have to be chattel slavery. It
Yes,
could still
they
be
were
slavery
property.
because they were property.
It says property.
Well, and again, I hate
Yes,
to get
in
a little
the-
bit pedantic, but so at least on the tablets that was created by God versus someone saying, "Oh, he told me this." You know what I mean?
The
This
whole
is
Bible
how
is
it
God
You have
told
your
me
smart
this.
girl glasses on.
The whole Bible is God told me this. Trust me, bro. That's the entire fucking Bible.
In the Old Testament.
Okay. Are you a
That's
single
why it's kind
issue
of a
voter
weird
on
thing
is
to-
slavery why you don't believe in God? Is that your single issue voter problem here?
No, but it's my single best argument against you dummies, to be honest. Because you
So
guys
it
are
was chattel
very
slavers.
only-
so-
mega
So-
coke.
I came right out
Hang
and said I'm pretty new on
No,
Christianity.
You're all
we-
being you're
we-
all
we've
coping.
no,
Anybody who's denying this is
Hunter,
coping. Yeah.
Hunter, we've demonstrated to you that the New Testament established a new covenant.
Okay, let me go ahead and write
in
down.
that new covenant, it speaks explicitly about the immorality of slave trading,
So
and
I need
and,
to-
and that
And that's
allows
the
you
doctrine that Christians follow.
right. We are not Jews. We are Christians. We believe in the new covenant.
We
Okay.
don't believe in
So
slavery.
can the
got
Jews
you.
have slaves?
So can I just hold
Those
on? Wait,
were
please
instructions
hold
in
up.
the Old
I
Testament.
I
in
get
the
it.
Old Testament.
Your beef is with the Jews, not us.
Okay.
Oh.
I have a question.
Oh.
You're saying that the new covenant came along and changed it from the things that were in the old covenant. Is the God of the new covenant the same God as the God from the old covenant?
It is the same.
Yes,
God,
but I would
Okay,
argue
wait,
that
wait,
this
wait,
is
please stop. Wait,
worse.
wait. Okay.
Blah, blah, blah.
So we
Well, no, Hunter, you can't
you
just sit there
said
and say
yes.
no
That
fucking
is the
answer.
contradiction.
Yes,
That
but
is
it
a logical
doesn't. But
contradiction.
the new covenant is what we follow, and that's His word.
Is
new
God
covenant isn't
is
the
God the
word of
ultimate
God,
morality?
though.
We
Hunter,
don't follow that.
Hunter,
Oh my
Hunter,
God! People are not listening. You guys
Hunter,
are not
Hunter,
listening to me.
do you believe God to be unable to change his mind or his commandment?
Is God infallible?
No, I'm asking you a simple question.
I
here.
was raised to believe that God is infallible. So yeah, if
Okay,
he's God, he's not going to be.
when God ordered Abraham to kill his son upon the mount, did God eventually say, "No, don't do it"?
God didn't change his mind
Rumham's
suddenly
a
and
liar.
randomly. God already was planning on doing that.
Yes,
Oh,
God
no,
did.
Maybe
wait,
he was
no,
also
that's
planning on
unknowable.
telling them the new covenant.
No, it is not
about
unknowable because
slavery
it
at
was
the
a
same
test for him.
time.
We understand this. That was in the
Perhaps.
Bible also. So
Maybe he knew the future about the new covenant where he didn't want us to do slaves.
so
Perhaps.
wait. So if God is the same, I have just another yes or no question. Is God the ultimate morality?
I think so.
Hold
yeah, why
on.
not? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
first
just
off,
trying to
there was
piece the puzzle pieces
multiple
together here.
okay,
If God
can
is
the-
the ultimate
can the-
morality, and God said something that was immoral in the Old Testament, and then the New Testament came along, but
You
God
can't say
stays the
it's
same,
immoral.
therefore, how is God the ultimate morality?
Your
Hold up.
claim of
It's
him
all
being
in-
immoral is
This is all
incorrect.
of
That's just a
Are you
fallacy.
willing to
Hunter,
say that
take
slavery is
voice chat,
immoral?
Tay.
Can the
Because
guy
you
with
won't
the
fucking
degree in
hear
the field come
anything.
out to play, or is Turtle?
Yeah, do it. Do
What
it.
Aggie does?
Like what's
Tagging
the
Aggie
question
in.
that? Oh, never mind. Fuck this.
He's criticizing Christianity because in the Bible it says you're allowed to own slaves.
He says
So he's
there's a lot of
dismissing the
contradictions.
whole
In the Old
religion. He's
Testament.
So,
dismissing the
no.
whole religion.
No, I'm not. I'm actually, this is a
Well,
fundamental flaw and people
Well,
aren't
wait,
really
what's
hearing me out very well.
what's the problem with that?
So
There are actually like
I will
hundreds of
explain
flaws
my main
if you
issue
look at
is
Yeah.
wait,
Bible.
who's the
Cube
Bible expert?
interpretation.
Who's the Bible expert here?
I think
Well,
it's
the
Turtle.
Bible expert is Grunt. He'll be around in about 20 minutes, but I'm the philosophy expert on the channel, I guess. So, I mean, if
Well,
you're
we need
talking about
Starface
morals
in
and
here,
stuff,
that's
I
who
can
we
do
need.
it.
I'm not really
But
talking
yeah.
too much, well, I guess kind of philosophy, but I'm mostly focused on no, it's not just because God said slaves, therefore I'm dismissing the whole religion. It's that it reveals a fundamental flaw that Christianity claims. I will explain. Christianity claims to
You're
put,
not God.
excuse me. Christianity
You're
claims
not God.
okay, if I were God, I would shut you up. So be quiet.
No,
So
listen
listen.
to me carefully. You're not God. Guess what? You
McNeely, could you please thank God?
I wish we could just ask him if he thinks slavery is
Dude, he's
moral or
gone.
not.
He's gone. Just fucking get through your
He's gone.
point.
He's gone.
Okay, all I was getting at is if God said that you can get slaves and you can own them and you can beat them, God said these things in the Old Testament, and God is the same God in the Old Testament as the New Testament. How is God the ultimate morality if God is completely okay with something that is blatantly immoral?
He's never changed his mind. But here's the thing. Here's the difference. Today, we have governmental standards that say that we are to follow. Like God specifically says, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, render to God what is God's.
Okay.
So the importance of this is follow the laws of the land, and the laws of the land say slavery is bad.
But God was
And it's
Oh,
determined that
Hunter,
today.
But God was
Hunter,
giving
this is-
laws to the people,
let
and
me
it,
say-
when
let me-
God, the
let me say
ultimate moral,
something.
hold on, wait. When God, the ultimate morality, was giving his laws to the people, he said slavery was okay.
Again,
Yeah, but this is the thing,
he
right? This
still
is
does,
the Old
but here's
Testament.
the thing.
Wait, McNeely,
You're
let me
not
Stop
God.
bringing up the Old
Bro,
You
oh
Testament.
my God, come on, stop
cannot-
saying that. Bruh.
No.
So look, this is also in the Old Testament right here, Deuteronomy 23:15-16. You shall not hand over to his master a slave who has escaped from his master to you. He shall live with you in your midst, in the place which he shall choose in one of your towns
Mhm.
where it pleases him. You shall not mistreat him.
So to me,
So-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
So to me, what that sounds like is, okay, it says, okay, you can own slaves, but if one runs away, right, you're not supposed to return it to the master, and you're supposed to let him live in peace, and you're not supposed to mistreat him.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean,
But
I
okay,
don't
then
know what
how
the
do you
issue is,
square
like-
that? Here's my main issue then is you, and honestly, this falls back earlier to your point you made earlier about Christianity being a good framework for stuff. This is where it is exposed as the worst framework because it's literally saying two separate things. God says slavery is okay. Then it says don't return a slave that runs away. God says slavery is okay. Then the New Testament says slavery bad. God is. We never know.
Let me ask you a question.
What does the New Testament say about slavery? Like, what do you guys?
There
hanging
is a
your hat
verse in
on?
it specifically that says slaves obey your masters,
slave
even those that are
traders.
harsh to you.
Well, this is the thing.
That is
you
not
just
true, 'cause
said
if you look at
that the
fucking
New
Colossians
Testament says that
4:1.
slavery is not okay. Like God changed.
No,
his
I was
mind.
saying
You
your
just-
guys' argument is that it's changing in the New Testament or the New Covenant. God's changing the New
I
Covenant.
don't. I haven't heard
Provoke,
anything
looking
about that.
bullshit.
But
Okay, I have it in my notes. So
you know what? Fuck it. Why don't you guys all just fucking burn? Go ahead, argue with Hunter. I don't need to. I can play video games. McNeely, here. McNeely,
why don't
you've been
you
muted for
argue
too
with
long.
me?
McNeely, I'm
What's...
sure you had something super fucking
I've been
intelligent to say.
trying
Go
to.
ahead.
I've been trying to make a fucking point, but nobody.
All
Everybody.
right, let's go,
fucking
McNeely.
mute.
Let him in. Just let just me and McNeely. Just let me and McNeely go at it for like 10 minutes.
Enough. Fucking enough. Housewife, shut up. Shut up. All right. Calm down. Fuck.
Okay.
Where's
If you want a
McNeely?
verse later, I'll give it to you.
It's literally my field. I'm trying to get a word in edgewise. McNeely would rather screech like a woman and pee himself in front of for the whole.
We don't need to be
server.
saying screech like a
And,
woman.
and Christian wants to be like
You,
fucking
I
drunken
muted
random
every
server.
fucking time. I got muted every fucking time I was
You're
trying to
not
make it.
adding anything to the conversation by saying you're not God. You're not God. That's not adding anything.
So, yeah.
People kick at me and mute me and shit. It's fucking disingenuous bullshit.
Hey McNeely, if you
Anyways, this is why.
wait really quick, sorry. Can
Okay,
I...
religion card, McNeely, shut the fuck up.
McNeely is
Everybody
more
be
than
normal.
welcome to
Let's get
join
it
my
going.
own server. I'm not trying to do self promo, but McNeely, you are more
If I
than
don't have the
welcome.
right to speak, why does
Oh
anybody
my
else have the
fucking
fucking
God.
right to speak?
McNeely.
Seriously, no. If I can contribute.
McNeely, do you realize that you're literally crying while a left-wing streamer puts it on Twitch?
I'm just not dealing with that.
That's what you
I'm
just
not
did,
dealing with that.
McNeely.
Just
You
add me
cut
add me
you
back,
cut-
bro, and I'll debate you one on one.
You cut me off, McNeely, so that you could speak on his Twitch stream and literally cry like a woman. Now go ahead,
Stop
please.
with the
continue.
woman thing. That's...
Shut the
Go
fuck
ahead,
up.
McNeely. Keep crying.
No, I'm
wanted
this
to
is
hear
what
the
I'm
next
with this fucking point.
I didn't have anything worth
Fucking
saying. You
fuck.
clearly needed to talk over me.
There
So
you
let's
go.
do it.
See,
Hunter,
we
bro,
really do want to hear you.
the
say
point I
stuff.
was trying to fucking make
For this fucking game
was
up,
that.
so you can cry louder.
Hunter, let me just say this, Hunter. I respect your
Anyways,
point
yeah,
of view, and I
see, I
understand
can't
where
even
you're
talk.
coming from. But you know, like
No, you
me
can-
as a
you can
Christian,
weep.
and I'm sure there's a few other Christians in the server.
Yeah,
I mean,
whatever.
we kind of rely on faith, and I know.
Damn, I'm
you know,
looking at
I
the
have-
chat on his
I have
YouTube stream. It
questions
says
about
"Make
the
Cry
Bible,
Baby."
too, and
I'm sorry, guys, but Hunter Avalone is kicking your ass in religion like he always will.
Of course he is. Look, I tried to speak up and have an intelligent conversation.
Agostro,
McNeely
I'm gonna
thought it was
send you a
super
DM
important.
right now.
I mean, I was trying to too, but like every time I tried to talk, somebody was like muting me and shit.
Do you
Being
think
an
there might have been a
asshole.
reason for that,
It's my
McNeely?
abuse. No, it's my
Bro,
abuse. You
they're
didn't even give me
spamming
what
his chat with "Make Cry Baby," bro. Chill, you're embarrassing yourself. Dog.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
it's fucking embarrassing.
Yeah, but I really want to hear.
Oh, it's
LMAO, bro. On to
embarrassing.
the chat, bro.
All right,
let's
McNeil,
get back on
add me
topic.
add me McNeil,
Thanks
so you
for
can debate me
fucking
one on one, and AG Kistra, if you want, we can debate one on one too.
Yeah, look, if you're talking about like secular philosophy and ethics, I'm your guy. I can do okay with religion. Grunt, who's been deafened and muted the whole time because he's at fucking work, is the guy that knows the most
Yo,
about
Full
religion. on
Metal
this
Hermit,
server.
why are you in his stream
So,
comments? Sorry.
I'm good. No, please, subject. I wasn't saying anything interesting. Please continue.
Is McNeely still
Anyway.
freaking out? Okay, I guess he calmed down.
If you wanted to have an
So-
interesting
so, Hunter.
conversation. That's good.
Okay, McNeely.
Hunter.
Thank you, AG.
Like I
yeah,
said before.
we should
Okay.
definitely discuss that. Although I don't think.
No,
that
no,
now's-
let's
Right.
let me
On the
speak.
subject
Let
of
me speak.
religion.
Your remember I said-
Guys, let McNeely
Holy
go ahead.
fuck,
McNeely,
every time.
McNeely
Let
can
him
speak now.
speak.
Let McNeely give Hunter more red meat.
As I was stating before, you're not God.
Okay.
You don't set morality. God does.
Okay.
So you know what's more. God knows what's moral, what's not.
Okay.
Just because you think it's something moral or immoral doesn't mean it's the case.
Can I ask
So
any
from
questions?
your perspective,
too?
so slavery is not something that God defines as immoral. It's not in the Bible as an immoral act.
So
It's
do you think
referenced in
that
the Old
slavery
Testament.
is
It's
immoral?
referenced in the New Testament. He hasn't changed. It hasn't changed from New Testament to Old Testament.
So do
His
you think
statements
that
on it.
slavery is immoral?
No. But I will say this: the laws of the land have deemed it so. It's deemed it as illegal.
So if the laws of the land decided tomorrow that it was bad to be a Christian, would you follow the law?
Well, there's a difference there. They shouldn't be opposing my religion, and what I believe on my own is my own business.
I'm just saying. Okay, more so. Do you believe God to be the ultimate morality?
I believe that the scripture says that he's the ultimate morality.
Okay, but then how can that be the case if God? I'm not.
Again,
don't get me wrong. My argument.
You're trying to define what morality is based on your perspective. You can't do that.
But I
to
can.
A God
but I can
who's
because I can
telling
say
you what
slavery is bad.
morality
I can
is
say,
or isn't.
But I can say slavery is immoral, and you can't.
Right? And I can say all
slavery is immoral, and I think slavery is bad.
And I can say all liberals are fascists.
Wait, I can
Well, slavery
explain
is
why
good
slavery
for
is
humans.
immoral.
An opinion, but that doesn't mean it's true.
I mean,
slavery
true.
is
It's not
good
because
for
I
the
said
building
it.
of
Yes.
society.
Slavery is immoral because you're taking away other people's rights and their autonomy. You're restricting their free will.
Agreed.
You're also
Agreed.
making it so that your entire country and civilization would actually be unstable. It would literally lead to an overall collapse of society. Even more so if you want to get into like the very philosophical stuff. I don't want to live in a
But where
world
does it
where
change in the
slavery
New
is a risk.
Testament? Where does it say it's illegal in the New Testament? Because it doesn't.
Well, let me just clarify. Actually, a verse was brought up that said under the new covenant, slave traders are the equivalent to, sexual immorality and all those other things. So under the new covenant, since, Christ came, now it is deemed, if you're a Christian, it is deemed as immoral.
Come on, we went over that 10
Didn't
minutes
somebody
ago.
already say that God is
Yeah.
omnipotent?
That's
Right?
what
God
that's
knows
what I'm saying,
all.
but
He's omniscient. He knows all. He knows everything. He knows what could have been. So then why did God change his mind on this? On such a crucial thing. Mind you, the verses in the Old Testament were used
do
historically
you not understand what a
to
covenant is?
justify American chattel slavery. Like, why did
don't
God
understand
not...
what a covenant is exactly? I still don't see where he changed his mind. I asked for a
You
verse
just read me a
where
verse where God said, or where the Bible said, excuse me,
okay,
that they are comparable to sexual immorality, or they're evil. They're never going to inherit the kingdom of God. Slave traders.
Mhm.
But in the Old Testament, God said you can buy slaves.
Yeah, there's a
You
ton of stuff
understand
like
what a
that,
covenant
right?
is?
What? Go ahead.
Christianity would use as a justification to outlaw slavery.
Multiple times throughout the Old Testament, there was a covenant,
Mhm.
between God and the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had to do these things. I'm punishing you if you don't do these things.
Mm-hmm.
These are situations, and for a period of time, these were covenants were put into place, agreements between God and the Jews. If you fail at doing this, I will punish you this way. Okay. Multiple times they had the situation where God rescinded those covenants with the do. Okay, you're doing better, so now I'm going to rescind this covenant. Okay. And then other times, you've done it back. You've not followed them and listened to me. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put these covenants back on you. Okay, multiple times throughout the Old Testament historically, there's these times where this happens. Okay, to the final where there's the last covenant in the Old Jewish Testament is where specifically laid out, and specifically Leviticus and others, where what you have to do in the covenant of, you have to do a sacrifice. You have to.
I'm not trying to cut you off. I just don't see how this is very relevant. Like okay, so
it's relevant because God changes what the covenants are.
God changes his covenants, yes, but his character doesn't change, right?
Okay.
So his character and part of his character is that God is moral. So why did some of his covenants include permitting behavior that is not moral? I guess you disagree because you think slavery isn't immoral.
Did you ever stop to think that maybe it wasn't immoral when God deemed it and allowed it? Because guess what? Morality comes from God, and morality says specifically, hey, if you're doing what God tells you to, that's moral. If you're not doing what God tells you to, that's immoral. So when God says it's okay, that's moral. But when God says it's no longer okay, That's immoral.
So why did
That's
God
your
at one point
morality,
say
and
it
that's
was
your
okay?
definition of morality.
Okay, great. So let's say that God
Because he
then right
deemed
there
it for that
decided
period of time that it
God didn't
that it
consider
needed
it
to be so.
immoral. That's great. What about all the people then that were enslaved and were beaten and treated like property their whole life? That just
that goes
fuck
just
'em?
goes strictly against the Bible, dude. Ephesians 6:9. Treat your slaves in the same way with goodwill. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there's no favoritism with them. Masters, provide your slaves with what is right and fair, because you know that you also have a master in heaven.
Anyone who beats their male or female
So people
slave
that
with a
abused and beat their slaves were not real.
This is from
they were
Exodus,
not.
and I have one from the New Testament as well. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result, but they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property.
Okay, is Exodus before or after Ephesians?
Okay, I said I have one from the Old and one from the New Testament. New Testament.
Okay, well then let's also do this. The seeds of emancipation of slaves are also within the Bible. It teaches that all men are created equal by God, made in His image. That's back in Genesis. It condones those who kidnap and sell a person, which is also in Exodus and in Timothy, which shows that the slave can truly be, they're equal.
What was that verse? It was on slaves obey the masters, even those who are harsh.
You guys didn't want me to talk, so I've just been putting stuff in the chat.
It says 1 Peter 2:18. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the cruel. So, if God remains the same, and God is supposed to be the ultimate moral consistency, and now you're saying, well, God maybe decided that it just wasn't moral at this point in time. Okay, then at that point,
He didn't decide anything.
No, I'm responding to what McNeely, his claim.
Okay.
Then at that point, I would literally be able to say fully confidently, like, then fuck God's morality. Because it's not moral at all. It's the opposite. Because the people who are enslaved, suffering, God may have decided it's totally moral, but the people being enslaved probably don't think so.
Seemed like
Well, it wasn't up to the slave, it was up to God. And
Yeah, and God made a
Seemed like
decision
what-
that did not maximize or even take into consideration human well-being. And in that case, I don't give a shit about God's morality. Which is why it always
Well,
comes
I mean,
back
if
to
you
the
think of
thing
it, like,
about how God
human-
is not really moral. Like you're saying, well, because he's
Okay.
God, he's moral.
That's a little
But
narcissistic.
you're literally
But
saying slavery
as,
isn't immoral because of this.
But as God said to treat your slaves like brothers, it's almost like, their rights are almost the same if you're treating them like a brother. I mean, God never has said to abuse your slaves or, completely control their life or anything. It seemed like God's idea of a slave is completely different to what we've seen in modern culture today.
So do you think if somebody like chained you up against your will and was forcing you to do work for them, but they were really nice and they fed you every day 3 meals a day, like from a gourmet restaurant, that you'd be like, okay, you know what, I'm good. It's okay.
You do
Fuck
realize
that.
that
Self-servitude is indeed a thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
There is
yeah.
some
Sign me up.
There is some self-servitude talked about in the Bible for sure, but that's not what the slavery is talking about in the Old Testament, which is the same God again that said it was okay. So if God's character doesn't change and God is supposed to be the ultimate morality,
Bro,
then yes,
give me 3
At the
gourmet
time-
meals. You
at
can
the
whip
time,
me
you
all
could
day.
sell
I don't give a
yourself into
fuck.
slavery.
I guess
At the
you
time,
guys
you
mind
could
if I
sell
go?
yourself into slavery.
It was always my
Yes,
idea
fine.
that God kind of tried to protect the sanctity of free will when he could for human beings. That's why he kind of revealed himself as more incrementally rather than directly at the.
you know what I'm gonna say, right?
All right, go for it.
There's a theologic sort of term. I was texting my brother about this because it's like, no, this guy's bringing up some good points. What did they do about sort of like old Leviticus readings? And there's a concept called progressive revelation, just meaning that God doesn't reveal all his will at once, but gradually over a long period of time. So the sort of progression in the Bible is a progressive revelation about how we should be kind and free slaves and treat others the way we want to be treated.
Okay, so I actually can totally understand that, but what I would say is that could very well be true, and I think that also would very well square away. Like, why didn't God literally say, like, here's all 500 zillion things that I want you to do? Like, maybe that's why he took it in
progressive
progress.
revelation.
But with progressive revelation, where he slowly reveals his will, I can get behind that. But God doesn't, or I'm sorry, slowly reveals like his plan and whatnot. In that process, God shouldn't contradict himself. And if God is saying like, we're all children of God, Jesus died for everybody, or I care about everybody, all these things, it contradicts that. To
Well, I think there
also
was
be
some
okay
sort of.
with owning people as slaves.
I would say that there's some consistency in the sense where even in the Old Testament they didn't condone
Let
any
the
sort of ill
philosopher
will or ill
speak.
humanity
Can you
against
let Aggie
anybody.
speak, woman?
Hey, come on.
Okay.
She was
Well,
being, we were
he's
having
asking me,
we
but
were in
that's
the middle of a
okay.
conversation there. Sure.
No, like she was cooking, bro. Like, yeah.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, slavery is a weird thing in like a pre-currency society, right? Like, a bunch of people worked for free. That's it. Like you work for free because in 7 years you're gonna get a plot of land. You work for free because in X amount of time you're gonna get to marry the guy that you work for as one of his daughters. You work for free because you got captured in battle, and like one of the like criteria of the surrender was that the loser would send 500 people to work for free for X number of years to like rebuild some stuff. Like, there's a whole lot of situations in which slaves, who are just people that are working for free, would happen in ancient times in a society where people were not carrying around debit cards or wallets full of coins. People were not getting paid for their work because currency wasn't a widespread thing. And to make a comparison between slavery in the Old Testament and slavery that was going on in, antebellum South, it doesn't make any sense.
I didn't make that
It's an
comparison.
equivocation.
You're making an equivocation to strengthen your argument by equivocating.
What's my argument?
Well, let me explain.
I haven't said anything. This is my first time saying anything in this fucking channel.
I know, and
you're telling me I'm trying to strengthen. You're telling me I'm trying to strengthen an argument. I haven't made an argument.
No,
yet,
I'm sorry.
and
I mean that
know.
by comparing it, it's trying to say like, so the slavery in the Bible was a lesser slavery. It wasn't as bad, right?
Why are you telling me? Why are you cutting me off in the middle of my explanation?
I was
to tell
just
me what
simply
I was
disagreeing with
trying to
it. Please continue.
No, you weren't. You were telling me what I was trying to say. I'll
was-
tell you what I'm trying to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So anyway, the nature of God doesn't change. The nature of man changes, right? If man has free will, and millions of men with free will choose to build society in different ways with different innovations, different restrictions, different taboos, and different this and that, it is inevitable that God's interaction with man will change, right? So the idea of saying, here's the circumstances in which you should treat a slave, where a slave is just somebody that works for free, is consistent with later on in a society that has different levels of innovation, different levels of economics, different levels of everything, saying, you don't do this to people anymore. I don't see the inconsistency. Like, the material circumstances have completely changed.
The people in the chat are trying to say that you're trying to make it out that slavery wasn't that bad. That's not what you were saying at all.
Huh?
You're
I'm
saying that
slavery
God
isn't.
People in his chat are trying to say that they're
I'm not-
asking, is you
I'm
trying to
not
say
debating
slavery
my
wasn't
chat
that
or
bad?
Slavery
Who cares what the chat says? They're not fucking in this conversation
Bitch, I don't give a
currently.
fuck. I don't give a fuck.
I know those retards. Those
They just
retards
don't understand. I'll bring
Anyway,
it up if
I
want.
said my thing. If Hunter has something to reply with, that's cool.
Yeah,
I think the oldest
What
sort of
is
doctrine
the-
is back in Genesis. We're all created in God's image, and there's countless Bible passages that we need to treat others as if they were God, and that was from the very beginning.
So, Kistra, whatever. I'm not sure how to say her name. Sorry. When it comes to the
Grunt's
God,
here.
are you saying that God adapts to like? You're saying God adapts, or help me understand. Maybe you can summarize. Like, God adapts to the times. God adapts to the, like, he'll adjust to men's needs. God doesn't change, but people change.
God doesn't change, but the things that he says to us changes, right? Like, the whole essence of communication requires two people, right? Like, when God communicates to man, God isn't yelling at a wall or yelling into a mirror. He's yelling at a creature that inherently changes. So what he has to say changes, right? Think of it this way. everyone in this channel, virtually everyone in this channel,
Mhm.
is working for some wage, and at the tippy top of the corporation that they work for is a guy that's making a vastly higher wage and like driving around in yachts and shit. Like, I don't know if you're like full bore commie or if you're a capitalist. I don't know what you are when
No,
it
I'm
comes
just
to
a
that stuff,
social
Hunter.
democrat.
Okay. So at the end of the day, the point is we're here talking about slavery being the end of the fucking universe in like 2,000 years before Christ, when there wasn't any money to pay people anyway because currency wasn't a thing. When right now we have people that make $10 an hour, right? Like, and the church isn't going to preach against there should be no such things as wages, right? So you're just talking about economic division, right?
No,
And
I'm
if we
talking
reach
about
a
you're trying. I'm just trying to
What?
piece together exactly what your overall argument is, that God changes with, or God will adjust with what people.
what God says to
Hard to
people will adjust
know.
because
Right, that
people
what God says.
themselves change. Right.
Okay, yes, but God doesn't change what he says to people in a contradictory manner. Unless it's clear, like, hey, don't eat meat for this tradition. I am now lifting this because this tradition is now done away with. I get that, obviously. But
Right.
God saying, like, hey, from the nations around you, you can get slaves. And yeah, if you beat them, they won't be punished or anything because they're your property. And then being just like, oh yeah, by the way, slave traders are like really fucked up, by the way. Like, that's not the same. It doesn't really seem like he's adapting to what he's. It doesn't sound like he's.
Of course it is.
No, it
Well,
doesn't sound like he's adjusting to what people are.
apply a little context. Apply a little context. You should be able to see a difference between going out, waging war, war is waged upon you, war happens for whatever reason it happens, and the agreement of slaves being part of the settlement for peace in a war, and a slave trader, which is a guy who goes around with his band of bandits and captures whoever the fuck that he can capture and says, you're a slave now, and sells them for whatever ends they're being sold to whatever people want to buy them, right? So you're talking about two completely different cultural artifacts that would have meant something completely different to the people of the time, right? The guy that's saying like slave traders are scumbags, for all we know, the context of the term slave trader when it was written there was someone that was exclusively selling like prepubescent children to like degenerates or something, right? So the idea of a slave trader being a piece of crap and the idea of it being permissible to have slaves as part of a peace settlement at the end of a war, they're not one-to-one. I can see why you're comparing them,
Okay.
but they're not the same thing as to say that allowing one and condemning the other is a contradiction. That's
Even
way
if they
too strong.
weren't a contradiction, it's an overall contradiction of God's overall traits. If he's saying that something is acceptable, that is a deliberate contradiction of his overall philosophy. I hear you about him changing, or sorry, not changing. Sorry, I hear you that it's going to depend on what he says to people, but God never says like. Well, I guess sometimes he does contradict with his commands. But usually God,
So-
I thought, wasn't supposed to command people to violate the rules that he set or the rules that he himself is working to establish.
What rule is he contradicting and violating?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not
what's the
talking about that one
Specific.
I'm
no,
not.
be specific here. You're trying to make a point. Be specific.
I'm saying that
Look,
God's is supposed to be the ultimate
I
morality.
heard what you said the first time.
Yes,
right?
and if
But
God is
what,
the ultimate
what
moral.
rule did he set in place that he's breaking himself?
Okay, I was talking about thou shalt not murder when God commanded his people.
What does that have to do with slavery?
I was saying for a different thing that God has done various things. I was listing off various things. At one point in the Old Testament, God commanded his people to massacre an entire village, including infants that were nursing. That's what I was referring to, and just which God does command a violation.
That's not what we're talking about. We're
I
talking about
know
slavery,
because
though.
it was
From
an
a-
off-comment thing, and then you asked me to elaborate. So I
a-
don't know why you're being snide about it, my friend.
From a
I'm
purely
just confused. You're
I
confused.
know,
Go
I
ahead.
can tell
Alex.
you're confused, but it might help if
Well,
you
I'm
act
only
a little
confused
less
because
smug.
you're off topic and derailing. Anyway,
You
From
asked
a
me
pu-
to
from a
elaborate
pu-
on that, so yes, I went off topic to
let
elaborate.
Axby. I'm gonna let Axby.
From
I'm
a-
gonna let
from a
Thanks for
purely
asking, though. I'm
human
glad I
per-
could elaborate.
From a purely human perspective,
Didn't help much.
if you have a singular book of the Bible written by a singular guy that all of their experts read, right? And the beginning of that book, right? There's a passage at the beginning of that book that says, "Thou shalt not murder," And there's a passage towards the end of that exact same book that says, when you catch these motherfuckers, I want you to kill every last one of them and bash their heads on rocks and execute them and stuff like that. You've got two choices. The guy, like, and you can leave God out of this. You could just say that it's a guy. One choice is the guy that wrote that book didn't notice that he contradicted himself, or that there's a context to the word murder in one part that you're missing that has it be consistent with the second part. Like, for example, maybe thou shalt not murder is talking about acts of civilians against civilians and has fuck all to do with war. Maybe thou shalt not murder has nothing to do with the context, right? So you need to dig a little deeper, right? Because, I mean, you can have an easier example than this. Grunt, when he wakes up, can give the exact chapter and verse, but in Proverbs, there's a verse that says, don't answer a fool when he asks you a question, because if you argue with him, you'll look like a fool yourself. And then the very next verse says, answer a fool when they ask you questions, because if you don't, everyone's going to agree with the fool and they're not going to know he's foolish. So that's a contradiction back to back.
Right, but that's not
Same
God
book.
himself that was like saying that, which is the distinguisher I make. The reason the slavery thing I bring it up is because of it starting off with like God said to Moses, these are the commands for your people. Like that's bigger
Right.
than just like someone in the Bible writing. I agree that there's like fucked up stuff in the Bible, and I don't think that everything in
That's
the
not what
Bible
I'm
is like
saying.
from God or God commanded that everybody, everything in the Bible or something. But just to be
Again,
clear,
track what I'm saying. Track what I'm saying here for a second. Leave God out of it. If you read a book that has two passages that contradict each other back to back, if you're doing your due diligence, you shouldn't just conclude, well, this guy just wrote two opposite things back to back. He must be schizophrenic. This book's stupid. What you should be doing is saying, whoa, what did he mean by these two things that contradict, right? Like, obviously, God wouldn't do that. God wouldn't contradict himself. But even a human being wouldn't do that. A human being wouldn't write a verse that says, do this thing, and then right next to it write a verse that says, don't do this thing. Right? Humans aren't that way. So
Right,
when you see a verse in the Bible that says, do not murder, and then you see God advocating executing people in a war, what you should probably be concluding is that executing people in a war isn't part of the definition of murder as it was written at that time, right? That would be the obvious answer to that.
Right, can I
Sure,
jump
well,
in here real
I
quick?
guess I just don't see how killing children that are still nursing wouldn't fit that definition, but maybe like I don't know. It's hard for me to conceptualize
Well,
that.
So back to the slavery thing. So the original versions of the Bible were written in Greek and Hebrew. So obviously, from generation to generation, and nowadays, there's been some changes, and I'm sure it's not 100% completely accurate from the first version. That's just a given. But like A.G. Kistro was saying, like you should really be trying to study what context a lot of these words are in the Bible. Like it says slave trader in the New Testament, and it condemns slave traders. You have to kind of find what context that is. Like he said, that could be directly meaning to somebody.
I'm not even
like
that
a trafficker
concerned
or
about all
something.
of that. Like I understand that maybe the context of maybe it's not quite as a blatant contradiction, but when God is supposed to be the ultimate arbiter of morality, I mean McNeely earlier told me he doesn't think slavery is immoral because of what was said in the
I
Bible.
think
So that's
It
clearly
doesn't
having
speak
a
for all of
negative
us.
impact here.
I
So
would
like
have to
Good call.
disagree.
So
I would have to disagree with what he stated there, because nowadays, as a Christian, you should be believing that slavery is immoral.
Yeah, and we would go
I
against
said we should
anybody who
follow
tried
the.
to use the Bible to condone slavery. That's
Look,
not.
And I
and
said
I
we
kind
should
of
be following the laws of the land, and the laws of the land state that
I
slavery
wanna
is bad.
I wanna
And when
touch
that's
on your
what we
point. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. My bad.
McNeely likes slavery and crying.
I wanna touch on your point when it comes to the contradiction of
Let him
like
speak.
thou shalt not murder, right? Is like so the it what I think it means is thou shalt not murder thou shalt not kill unjustly, right? Which is murder, right? And then when he killed, the firstborns and and wiped out that whole town of women, children, and stuff in like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? He did it because the people didn't respect his laws, right? So he wiped out all the people in that town because they were going against his word and what he wanted, right?
What about
and
when
hit
God,
let me finish.
sorry, sorry, sorry.
Now, if God decides to wipe out a whole people, right, and a whole area of inhabitants, right, I think, right, if you're looking from a certain perspective, God's perspective, right, he created all these people. So if his creation is going astray and violating his law and his word, right, would you say it's unjust for someone who's a creator to destroy something that he created?
If
It's
they
like
don't,
if you
if
let
they
me give
don't,
you an
if
analogy.
they don't, well,
Let
no,
me give
I
you
don't
an,
want your
let me
analogy
give you an
because this is a
analogy.
really bad
I'm
argument.
gonna give it to you.
I
I'm
don't.
gonna give it to
What
you.
if
I'm
they
gonna give
don't
it to you.
know they were
I'm gonna give it to you.
created?
I'm gonna give it to you. So let's say you're playing a game, right? And you're playing, like, you're creating this little society or whatever, and then they start not doing what you want, right? And you don't get the specific outcome you want, and you go in and erase it, right? I think from God's perspective, it's justified because he doesn't. There's no
So a
like.
child has no concept of God's laws.
It doesn't matter.
So wait, is it
He
just
created.
you
It
said they
doesn't
weren't
matter
following
if
his laws?
it doesn't matter.
not
It does.
true.
It's all his creations, right? So he doesn't have to. It doesn't matter to him whether they can conceptualize him or not.
Why is he killing them?
I explained this to you because they weren't respecting his laws.
And a child has
right?
no
Children weren't
concept.
disrespecting
Wait,
his
hold on,
laws.
please. And a child has no concept of God's laws. So when God
Agreed.
murders children, how is that just? Please elaborate.
It's not
It will take
just
them to
right.
heaven.
I
God's
wouldn't
not
say.
gonna send a child
I
to
wouldn't
hell.
say. I wouldn't say that. It's like, I don't know how to articulate it, but I wouldn't say that I don't think you should be looking at it from that perspective.
Why?
Right? You got to look at it from how the way I was explaining it, right? If he created these people, right? Why can't he just get rid of them and destroy them? Right?
Because if he created them and
why?
because if he's the ultimate creator and he wants his creation to follow him, and he's also supposed to be the ultimate
Which they weren't.
Wait, and he's also supposed to be the ultimate justice, then
Mhm.
before he kills his creation, they should have an understanding, first of all, that they are created. They should have an understanding what the rules are. They should know why. They should know what the consequences are. Then we need to discuss whether or not the consequences fit the crime. That all plays a
But if
role
he's
in
the
justice.
creator of the universe, why does he owe that to his creations? He doesn't.
Okay, so then what you're saying
It's
right
a ridiculous
now, so wait,
argument.
Oh, wait, you're making a ridiculous argument because you're saying might equals right. You're saying because God is so powerful, because he could just wipe us out because he created us, therefore, can a mother kill the child that was formed in her womb?
Do you believe that God owes you understanding?
Hey,
If he wants
considering
me to
today's
follow him, yes,
societal
actually.
norms. Wait.
God does
consider-
not owe you
Hey,
anything.
let me answer the
You are
question.
not
Okay, then I owe him
Let me
nothing.
answer the question. Let me answer the question. He said, "Does a mother have a right to kill the baby?" In modern times, a lot of people assume that and think that,
When the
right?
baby's
When it comes
born,
to abortion,
does she have the
when it
right when the
comes to
baby's
abortion.
born? Okay, abortion aside, when the baby is born, does she have the right? She created that baby. The baby was created with her stuff, her nutrients, her body.
No, she doesn't have the right
Okay, why? She created it.
because we have laws that say that
come
that's
on.
murder.
Not
okay?
a
What?
law.
How is this?
cop-out.
This isn't bad
We're
faith
talking
here.
about principles here, not laws. If the law made it okay, like abortion, would it
A
be okay then?
woman is not God equivalent to God.
Well, hold on a second. So what's the morality we're going with here? Like, I agree with you. You don't like murder babies, but why? Like, if that
Because
sounds like
if
a
God
a
is the
stupid question.
justice, is the ultimate justice, then killing something for not following his word or
He was saying
something.
because they're
The
too
thing
young to
that has
conceptualize wrong
that
and
does
right.
not have the ability, yes, to conceptualize this. How is that just? That is what I'm asking.
I figured
gave
because
them
Well,
they're
I mean, you're
inherent
going
more-
a lot
everyone a
further
chance.
than that. You're not saying how is that just. You've made it clear that you think that it isn't just, and I'm just asking where that's coming from.
Yeah, because killing a child is the unjustified taking of a human life, and in that case, yes, you're killing a life. You're taking away someone's freedom and free will, their autonomy, their chance at life, even for what?
Yeah, but I'm asking you where your morals come from. Like, where's all this? Yeah, you're saying a bunch of stuff I'm familiar with, but why?
Because I believe in maximizing human well-being.
Okay, so we maximize. So if you maximize human well-being, how do you know that maximizing human well-being doesn't mean wiping like a pagan tribe off the face of the earth?
Because
It's
in the
three fa- it's
process
three
of
fa-
maximizing human well-being, I want to I don't want to harm human well-being in the process of maximizing it. So even if we said, hey, you know what, if we just like genocided this whole tribe, maybe everything
Right.
would be better, you know? No, because in order to do that, we would still be harming those humans' well-being, and that contradicts my overall philosophy.
Okay,
But
so
God
you're not
God knows
after
all.
maximizing human well-being. You're after not hurting anybody in the short term.
No, I want to
And
maximize
Gomorrah-
human well-being
God-
without harming
if
people in
God
the
didn't
process.
destroy Sodom and Gomorrah in the future, you know, God knows all. He's omnipotent, omnipotent, omnipresent. So God may have been doing something. You know, we don't understand His will fully, but He may have been doing something in the short term, which had many benefits in the long term.
Anyway, Grunt, are you in yet or not?
Yeah, I'm here now. I had to get out of this class. I got out like at 10 o'clock. What are you guys talking about?
I'm sure the reason why he came in
How
as a
God
Leo
contradicts
and to
himself. He
purify the
supports
land, right, to
slavery,
get rid of
murder
this
of
tribe
children.
was
Okay.
because of the way that they lived.
Yeah, we're talking about, I think it's like the Amalekites or whatever, that God advised that like their babies' heads be beat to death on rocks and all that stuff when they were conquered.
Yeah, Canaanites bad. Yeah.
Well, I'm actually not even that. I'm more, if the scholar guy's here, I want to talk to him about the slavery thing. That's the.
I'm not a scholar. I'm just a Christian. I do read my Bible.
You're smarty
What's up?
pants. You're
So
smart.
what's the question?
My question is, so I was raised Christian as well. My question is just regarding Leviticus 25:44, where God commands Moses to tell the people that they can get slaves from the nations around them. How God can be the ultimate morality if he also is okay with owning human beings as property, something that most people
Okay.
understand as being immoral.
Right. I think there is something. So slavery in the Old Testament comes in two forms at least. And the one that you're not, but I think it's important just for like everybody to get some background. Probably talk about both of them for just a second. So there was the form where like you're in debt, like you're like a fellow Israelite or you're a neighboring nation, and you're in debt, or you did A, B, or C, and you would be enslaved for a maximum of 6 years, and there'd be a jubilee year, and you'd be let free, right? And all through that time, through Leviticus and Exodus, it talks about how you may not mistreat the slave, and you will not send them away without anything of their own. You will bless them as they leave. If they're married that time, and the person, if they will leave with their family, with the exception being that that person was also a slave and they need to pay off their debt that they are indebted to. So it's like, and
Sure,
rather than
I-
going to debtor's prison, right? It would be like you would work for a small wage. You would get the fruits of your labor. You work in protection of a house, and then after 6 years, regardless of your debt, you'd be let free.
Just
now,
to
what
be
you're
clear,
talking
sorry
about,
sorry to cut you off, but I'm definitely aware that like not all the slavery in the Bible is referring to like, you know, I know it's
Right.
I know it's not the same as like chattel slavery from in America or whatever. But it is more, my main concern is definitely the more the Leviticus one, talk about being property for life.
right? So if you were part of like a Canaanite nation or something like that, this is like the Gentile version of slavery that we identify. There were 3 cases that I can identify that this occurred. And by the way, I'm just pulling this off the top of my head, so check me. But this is from last time I looked into this. You would either kill everybody, like you just was the complete, like you were like the Ninevites, you were a Canaanite capital, and you were just mass sacrifice. God says, "You will be my instrument," and the iniquity of the Amorites is come to fruition. They haven't repent, so I'm telling you to wipe them out, men, women, and children, etc. So that's the first thing that could happen. Second thing is they wipe out all the men, and they take the women who no longer have their husbands as wives. And the last one that could occur is what you're talking about, is that there would be slavery. Now
said they can go to the nations around you and buy slaves. So it sounds like they're talking about
that's right,
getting slaves, not slaves from war as much.
That's right. And but you also know that when you're saying like, oh, if that's the one you want to talk about, we can talk about not just like slaves from war. We can talk about slaves from just buying from the neighboring areas. What you'll notice also, it says that anybody who kidnaps another man and enslaves him will be put to death. Right. So the Bible doesn't condone kidnapping by any means. The people that were enslaved that you may purchase were people who are condemned men, or people that had a debt to pay off for doing some high crime or something like that. These people would be the ones that typically were enslaved, and you may buy them. But even during that, the Bible in no time condones like mistreating a slave. It says if your slave escapes from out for mistreatment and you receive him, do not return him. This is the reason why he.
Yeah, but in
like,
Exodus also it says that if you beat the slave and he recovers after a day or two, it's fine because he's your property. So the thing is like because some people come out swinging too hard and say like God endorsed slavery or something. Like I don't think that's true. I don't think God like endorsed it.
That's what you were saying. What the fuck?
I just think I think God was okay with it. That's what I've been saying. Is if God was able to I'm not. If God was able to
yes, you are.
No, I am not.
Well, let him make his point.
If God was able to say, "Hey, don't eat shellfish. Hey, don't kill," why was God not able to say, "Don't own people as property and beat them too"?
Right.
Like that's
so like when you say like right. So like if he recovers in the sense like my kids be like, and I'm not saying this is the proper interpretation, but it could be one interpretation because I'm not a biblical scholar, right? I'm just saying what it is because I know there's other verses that talk about slavery where it's like if you hit your slave and he loses his eye or something like that, you must immediately let him go free. Like if you do permanent damage to someone, like you or a bad owner, you must compensate him and you have to let him go, right? And if you kill someone, then you shall also be put to death as well. Now, if you hit someone and they recover, just like I was raised with physical discipline, this I don't think that this is incorrect here. If it's saying if the law is saying like, hey, if you hit someone as a disciplinary thing, whether and they recover, then obviously this isn't forfeit of the fact that they are indentured to you.
Okay, yeah, I guess I even knowing the context, I still see an issue with even if someone does owe you or is indentured to you, I just see it.
I'm not saying that is the correct context either. I'm saying that's possibly what it is.
Right. No, and I'm saying even if that were the correct context, even if someone were indebted to you, I would still find it wrong to be treating like God's creation, if we're all created in the image of God, as property. I have a lot of issues with that too. However, I will say you definitely are able to give a better argument than most. So props to that.
Well, what I will say is like the word like in Hebrew, from what I can recall, like slave and servant are almost interchangeable, and the Bible does not condone the mistreatment of like animals or people. In fact, if you think about it, the law talk is applies to people who do things that were not meant for things that were not meant to be. Like if someone does something
that is assuming
wrong,
your interpretation is correct, right? Because like the other interpretation is that, well, they're your property, so if you beat them, as long as they're okay, you're good. I mean, you
think
can
about
take
it, like
a pretty severe beating and be okay.
If they talk about for like bestiality, for instance, like God doesn't want bestiality, but there's laws talking about bestiality and what will happen if you are in debt. It is not God's will that you be in debt, but there are consequences for being in debt. You will be enslaved until your Jubilee year. If you commit extreme crime or something that can be even more severe. It's not that this is what is wanted. The laws is to address things that are not wanted.
Sure, but I just don't see how I guess it's just the consequences still seem to be a contradiction of God as far as the morality goes, because I don't see how owning other people as property
Do people get life? Let me ask you: Do people get life sentences in prison a lot?
Yeah, I know. If you bring up the thing with current day jails and whatnot, like there are definitely issues nowadays with that as well.
And what hold on, what do we talk about oftentimes with jail? That it's not rehabilitative, right?
Yeah.
And what would make something rehabilitative, even if it didn't give you full freedom?
I don't know. I guess you're saying that slavery was a form of rehabilitation.
It possibly could have been. It could have been that these people who
I don't think so.
These people could would be accepted into a family, be well treated, and be under positive influence. And if they were a bad influence, they would not be returned to their owner, or they'd be let free if they were still under the custody of their owner. And so they were put in a positive environment under mastership. Now there's consequences for doing bad things.
I mean, like for example, like it talks about if the master gives the slave a wife and they have a kid, then the wife and child are now the property of the master. So even if the slave is
no. It
Yes,
says that the wife
if-
and children still will belong to the You're talking about Exodus. What these talks is, if while you are a slave, you are married or given a wife, right? And you are let free. If the other party still owes like a debt, like it was like another indebted servant who got married to this indebted servant who has finished his 6 years in the Jubilee year, that person doesn't get off scot-free just because they finished 3 years and they got married, right? And they can get off free. They still have to pay their debt.
Okay.
So it's not
I
like
don't
a get out of
remember it.
jail free
I'll
card.
have to look it up then, because you could very well be right. But yeah, honestly, hey, appreciate the convo. If you ever want to jump on stream, let me know. I go live pretty frequently, so yeah. But
I actually have a question. Why do you
Thanks for
go live
coming.
like at 7 in the morning? Is there a reason for that, or?
it's actually like 10:30 p.m. over where I'm at.
Oh, for you. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's why. But yeah, I appreciate the
Hunter,
conversation, everybody.
where
I
are
do
you,
want to
man?
log off though, because it's been almost 2 hours now, so I'm getting kind of tired.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't come on earlier. I was in class, but pleasure
That's okay.
talking to you. Hopefully we can talk again.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today.